Hello guys, Mr. Danamon2050 here. Welcome to the second part of my guide where I show you how to build a gaming PC or just a normal PC. So what we're going to be doing now guys is actually putting the motherboard into the case. So you can see here I've just put it in, and we're going to be actually putting the screws through the motherboard and into the standoffs, because as you know a motherboard cannot touch the actual case. So yeah, what it has to do is actually touch the standoffs which touch the case. It's all about electric and just the way that the motherboard's really sensitive to static electricity and stuff like that. So you just screw all these screws in. There should be about 9. I'm just showing you them here, just kind of skipping through the video here just to show you them with some nice transitions in there. And once you've got all the screws in, just make sure make sure you fasten them all nice and tightly, and then that'll be all good. And you want to make sure you put your CPU fan onto the 3-pin or 4-pin header. And it should be a 4-pin so it can control the speed, and there we are. Your fan's now installed. Now we're going to be connecting some of the cables, lads. So this is the USB 3 cable. This will allow the devices plugged into the USB 3 ports on the front of the case to take advantage of that wonderful speed that you get from USB 3. Next up guys, we're going to be installing the USB 2 header. So this one's slightly smaller. It's kind of like a standard size, and that goes just in there. If you're wondering which goes in kind of which socket, just look into your motherboard manual. The manual will tell you where everything goes, because yeah, this is one of the things that are really different. Now talking about things that are really different, it's stuff like this. That's the power switch just gone in there. You're also going to plug in stuff like the hard drive light. There's going to be a load of other ones. You should have about 4 to 6 of these to plug in. I'm just going to show you a few because there's no need. Usually the actual coloured cables are the actual positive ends, so that's all good. This guys I'm plugging in is an actual fan. This one is for the front of the case. That's a 3-pin fan. You can also power this via a Molex, but because we have an actual header on the motherboard, we'll use that. So next up guys, we're going to be installing the speaker. So this is a really small speaker which just literally goes beep or beeps many times, and this is kind of for troubleshooting. So if you first turn your PC on and your PC bleeps more than once, you know that there's a problem. Chances are it'll be a problem with you not probably putting the CPU fan in, or your RAM's a little bit dodgy, something like that. So that speaker will allow you to get an idea of what's wrong. It'll bleep and they'll correspond to different things. And just if you're wondering guys, that's called a post beep. So that installed just there. We'll move on. So what we're going to do now guys is power some of the things. So that's the 24-pin motherboard socket. There's the Intel CPU power socket thing there. So yeah, we're going to be powering, and yeah, just plugging in a few of the cables. So this is a 24-pin power cable for the motherboard. So just going to put that in there. This should be the fattest of all the cables. So that goes in there, that powers the motherboard and most of the stuff that's connected into the motherboard. Next up guys, we're going to be plugging the CPU one in, so that goes in just there. Yours on your motherboard should be either a 4-pin or an 8-pin. Most CPUs these days are 4 pins, but some of the bigger ones are 8-pin, so just bear that in mind. And yeah, so that goes in there. Just give it a little wiggle. Just give it a little wiggle to make sure it's in there. So next up guys, we're going to be plugging in the SATA power cable for the optical drive. So we're just going to plug that in there. So just push it in, and that's that. So that will power the optical drive, because we need this to install Windows 7. And that's all good. So moving on guys, we're going to be connecting the actual the fan in the front of the case. So as I mentioned before, you can rather do it with the Molex or the 3-pin. Since there's no 3 pins left on the actual motherboard, we're going to be using the Molex. So that's the Molex connected in my left hand. I'm just looking for one of these within all these wires that come out of the power supply. And there we have got one. So as you can see, look, there's the Molex, exactly the same as that. And if you spin the actual cable around that came with the fan, you'll see that that can go in there. So that's all good. So you just want to put it in there. These are a little bit tricky to put in guys, the Molex connectors, but once they're in you should be nice and happy because your fans can now spin. So there we are. So while we're down here, we're going to be connecting the actual hard drive. So we're going to be giving this some power. So just going to put that in there. Same as what we did with the optical drive, it just slots in. They can only go in one way, so that's nice and simple. So that just goes in there. So next up guys, we're going to move on to actually connecting the data cables to both the hard drive and the optical drive. These cables did come with the motherboard box. Typically with a motherboard box you should get 2 of these cables, so one for your optical drive, one for your hard drive. That's kind of the basic setup that allow you to get your PC up and running. So in there, look, we've just put the cable, and then we'll connect this other end to the motherboard in just a little while. So yeah, we're going to be plugging another one of these cables into the optical drive, so there we are, that goes in there. and now you should have 3 loose cables, no, 2 loose cables, sorry. So you just want to plug these into your motherboard, and it goes there, and now it can kind of send and receive data. So what we're going to do now, guys, is install the graphic card and also the Wi-Fi card that I selected. So I want Wi-Fi on my PC, so you want to just unscrew these things at the back, and they will allow you to install stuff like, you know, graphic cards, Wi-Fi adapters, all the good stuff like that. So with them removed, as you can see, look on the back, there's space for the stuff to go. So this is the Wi-Fi adapter. This will plug into the white PCI Express ×1 socket. That hasn't gone in properly. There we are. So plug it in there, and there we are, all installed. We just need to put the screw back on, and that'll kind of fix it to the case and make sure there's no kind of sagging of that part once the case is actually up on the floor and upright, I suppose. So the case is laid down at the moment. So we're going to be installing the graphic card. This is the beast of this system, I suppose. This is what allows a PC to turn into a gaming PC. In this case, I spent £200 to get a good graphic card. So that's 200 UK pounds. This is the GTX 760. It's the cheapest card in the 700 series range that Nvidia GeForce do, but this card can at least play all your games on Ultra with at least 60 FPS in every single game. Most definitely. So we're just taking off all these protective caps. So we've got, you know, protective caps for the actual socket for the motherboard and all stuff like that. So just cut the video there. Just kind of moved some cables out of the way so it's in the way, and you want to slot that in there. Yeah, you just want to line it up nice and good, and then give it a good push, and it should go in. And there we are. Look, it's gone in nice and good. And what you want to do, guys, is actually, you know, with the screws, you want to put the 2 screws back in, and then it'll allow you to, have a nice secure graphic card. So that's all good. Put the 2 back in, and there we are, all sorted. So there we are. So next up, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to be powering the actual graphic card. So the graphic card's in, but it needs power. So if we just reach to the back of the case and get some more wires and the dreaded power supply. Power supply's going to load the cables these days. It's kind of ridiculous. So here we are, a 6-pin PCI Express cable. We'll put that into the port there. Most of these will be, 8-pin, but you can detach the 2 pins to make it a 6-pin. So as you can see there, look, there's 2 pins actually, should I say, dangling off the 6-pin. So you just want to disconnect them and then put it in. So there we are, we've got 2 6-pin cables into the graphic card. Then when we turn the PC on, the fans should spin and the graphic card should be powered, all sorted. So since I did install a Wi-Fi adapter, what I want to do is the antennas that I got in the box to actually put the antennas on the back of this card, as you can see here, if the camera's just in focus. So yeah, just screw these into your Wi-Fi adapter. Most of you guys won't use Wi-Fi, but in my case I kind of have to because I'm up on the top floor and the router's on the bottom floor. That should really be the same with all you guys, but yeah. So now you know how to install an actual a Wi-Fi card with all the adapters and stuff. So there we are. There's the antennas facing up. Yeah, all good. So now we've got the actual, so now we've got everything installed, we can start putting the case back together. So we just put in the actual back panel back on. That's the that's that there. Oop, kind of dropped that there. So these are thumb screws, as I mentioned before. You just put the thumb screws in with your hand. You can tighten them with a screwdriver, but there's no real need in my head. And that's it, guys. The build is kind of complete. So yeah. So the last thing to do, guys, is I always put this in last. This is the RAM. I always put the RAM in last. Don't ask why. So you just want to push these outwards, the white parts on there, and then you want to slot your RAM in. It can only go in one way. If you want to, what you will notice with RAM is that it has a little gap in it, and that lines up to the notch, and you should be able to put your RAM in. That's all good. And now for the second module, that just slots in there again. So you want to push the white clips out, put your RAM in, and then close them. So guys, that's going to be the end of part 2. Feel free to watch part 3. The link should be on the screen now. That'll take you to another video where we'll look at installing the OS and installing the video drivers so you can at least start playing your games. Thank you for the support, guys. Feel free to like, comment, and also subscribe. Cheers.